So today we'll be working on solving one-step equations, but in order to solve these we got to understand a property of numbers, and the first property we need to understand is the multiplication property of equality, and those are big fancy words. All it basically means is that we can multiply each side of an equation by the exact same number, and if we do that the equation stays balanced. It's equal on both sides. If you think back to our barbell, we'll have the same amount on both sides. So in our two examples that I have written on the board, the first one says 10 equals 2 times 5, or 2 groups of 5, and that makes sense. So all I did is I came along and I said, well, on this side where there's 10 pounds, if I multiply that by 3, I'll have 30 pounds. And on this side where there's 2 groups of 5, or 2 5-pound weights, and I say, you know what, let's multiply that by 3. Let's make 3 groups of 2 5-pound weights. Well, 2 times 5 is 10 times 3. Hey, it's still equal. 30 still equals 30. And over here on the right, this looks a little confusing. All that means if A equals B, if whatever's on side A is equal to whatever's on side B, and we multiply both sides by the same thing, we're going to take A and multiply it by C, whatever C is. We're going to take B and multiply it by C, whatever C is. If we multiply by the same thing, our equation stays equal. That's all it means. So multiplication property of equality just says you can multiply both sides by the exact same thing, or the exact same number, and the equation stays balanced. Now, something to think about is the use of fractions. We know a fraction bar can be the same as divided by. So in the fraction on the left, it says 16 fraction bar negative 8. Think of it as 16 divided by negative 8. And we should know that a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So 16 divided by negative 8 equals negative 2. Well, if we look at the example in the middle, negative 16 divided by positive 8. Again, a negative divided by a positive will be a negative. So negative 16 divided by positive 8 is negative 2. Now, if you look at the one on the right, it's a little more confusing. The negative sign is what I call out in front. So the technical way, or the mathematical way of reading that, the negative sign out in front here actually means the opposite. So we're saying the opposite of 16 divided by 8. Well, 16 divided by 8 is 2, but I want the opposite. I want negative 2. So anytime you see a negative sign in a fraction, whether it's on the top, the bottom, or the middle, you could just think of it as being interchangeable. So the negative sign could be on the bottom, the negative sign could be on the top, the negative sign could be out in front, and it's going to equal the exact same thing. So division equations can be written in a few different ways. If you look at this equation, it says m fraction bar 5. Well, if you don't like the fraction bar, if the fraction bar is too confusing to you, you could rewrite this same equation as m divided by 5 equals 4. Okay? The fraction bar just means divided by. So that's one way you could rewrite it. Another way is to just take the fraction bar and turn it into a slash. So it says m something divided by 5m slash 5 equals 4. So if a fraction bar is too confusing for you, I encourage you to rewrite the equation like that. So anytime you see a fraction bar, feel free to rewrite it. Whatever's on top, in this case the m is on top, that would be written first. The fraction bar turns into a division sign. Whatever's on the bottom, the denominator, would be written second. So anytime you're confused, feel free to rewrite it like that. So now we want to solve our equation. Remember, to solve an equation, we want to figure out what number will make that letter a true statement. Now, one thing we learned earlier, the multiplication property of equality says we can multiply each side by the same thing. So some of you like to cut your equations down the middle, so we cut the equals there. Now you'll notice that negative sign is floating out in front. One thing we talked about on the last slide is how that negative sign could be interchangeable. What I always do, and it's a hint that I suggest kids use, if you see the negative sign floating out front, cross it off and choose where you want to move it to. You can move it to the top, the numerator, or the bottom, the denominator. It's almost always easiest if you move it to the number. In this case, there's no number up on top. That's an m. We don't know what it is. Some of you know what it is already. But the number on the bottom, 20, remember we're going to take that negative sign that was out in front, and we're going to move it to the bottom. So now it says m over negative 20 equals negative 2. And again, if you don't like the fraction bar, rewrite it. M divided by negative 20 equals negative 2. Again, we can cut it down the middle. Inverse operations. The operation in this problem is a division sign. The inverse is multiplication. So we're going to multiply by negative 20. And remember, whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side. The divide by negative 20 and the multiply by negative 20 cancel each other out. We are left with m equals negative 2 times negative 20. That's positive 40. We are almost positive that m equals positive 40. Now it says check my answer using substitution. Substitution just means take my original problem and change the variable, in this case m, into what I think m is. I think m is 40. That's the work we just did. So I'm going to put in a 40, fraction bar, a 20. I'm going to put my negative sign out front like it was when I started. And I wonder if this will equal negative 2. Well, let's see. If I do the work here, this says the opposite of 40 divided by 20. I know that 40 divided by 20 is 2. Opposite, bring the negative down. Hey, negative 2 equals negative 2. I just proved that my answer was correct. So these problems should be on your paper. Teacher can pause the video and take about 5 minutes. Everybody try these, check in with a neighbor, and in 4 or 5 minutes the teacher can hit play again, and I'll be going through the answers at that time. Okay, so hopefully you've had time to try all 3 of these, and I'm just going to quickly go through all 3 of them. If at any time something doesn't make sense, make sure you ask the teacher. They'll pause the video and go through it with you. So in letter A here, I'll cut it down the middle for those of you who need to do that. The fraction bar I know means divided by. The inverse of division is multiplication. If they divided by negative 5, I have to multiply by negative 5. Divide by negative 5 and multiply by negative 5 will cancel, leaves me with r. 10 times negative 5. I think that r equals negative 50. I'm almost sure I'm right. Down here it says I should use substitution. So real quick, I'm going to substitute. My original problem had an r on top, but I think r is negative 50. There was a negative 5 on the bottom, and I hope that the side on the left should equal the side on the right. My barbell should balance. Let's find out. Negative 50 divided by negative 5. And negative divided by negative is a positive. Positive 10 does equal positive 10. I proved that I'm right. Check. I know I did it right. Moving on to letter B. I'm going to cut it down the middle. Fraction bar means divide by 6. So in the problem, if they divide by 6, I have to multiply by 6 on both sides. The divide by 6 and the multiply by 6 will cancel. Leaves me with s all alone. 54 times 6. Few of you can do that in your head. Most of you got to set up a side problem. So 54 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 2, 32. S is 324. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Real quick, I'll substitute. Remember, substitute means rewrite the problem, but change the variable into what I think it is. I think S is 324. And there was a 6 in the denominator's place. And I wonder if that will equal 54. I cannot do 324 divided by 6 in my head, so I quick set up a side problem. 324 divided by 6. 6 won't fit into 3, but it fits into 32. 6 times 5 is 30. 2 left, bring down the 4. 6 fits into 24 4 times. I got 54 on the left, and that equals 54 on the right. Check. I know I did it right. Letter C. T divided by 20. It's okay that the division problem or the fraction is on the right. It doesn't hurt anything. If they did divide by 20, I have to multiply by 20. And I have to do that on both sides. Divide by 20 and multiply by 20 will cancel. I'm left with t. Negative 30 times positive 20. And negative times a positive is a negative. 30 times 20 is 600. I'm pretty sure that t is negative 600. Again, I'm going to substitute super quick. I'm going to rewrite the problem. Negative 30, I hope will equal, let's see, it was a t on top. I think t is negative 600. And there was a 20 on the bottom. Let's see, I've got negative 30 on the left. On the right, negative divided by positive is a negative. 600 divided by 20, I know that is 30. Negative 30 equals negative 30, check. I know I did it right. I proved it using substitution. So this one should be in your study guide. Go ahead, grab your study guide. Everybody work on this problem. Teacher, now would be a good time to pause the video, give everybody 2 or 3 minutes, and then go through this one together. So hopefully you've had time to try this one. We'll go through it real quick. I'll cut it for those of you who need it cut. The fraction bar means divide. If they did division, the inverse is multiplication. They divided by 11, I have to multiply by 11 on both sides. Now again, remember, if the fraction bar confuses you, you could have rewritten this problem as k divided by 11 equals 4. And then you could do the same thing. Cut it down the middle, multiply by 11. We're going to get the same answer. The divide by 11 and multiply by 11 cancel. Leaves you with k all alone. Same thing here. Divide by 11 and multiply by 11 cancel. Leaves you with k all alone. And 4 times 11 is 44. Same thing here. 4 times 11 is 44. So you're pretty sure that k is 44. But if you read the directions in your study guide, you were supposed to prove it using substitution. So I'm going to rewrite the problem real quick. Here's my fraction bar. There was a k on top. I think k is 44. 11 in the denominator's place. I wonder if that'll equal 4. Let's see. 44 divided by 11 is 4. And on the right I got 4 on the left does equal 4 on the right. Check. I know I did it right. I just proved it using substitution. So solving these one-step equations should be easy if you remember to do the inverse operation. So whatever operation is in the problem, you need to do the inverse to undo it. And then checking with substitution is a great tool. Okay, it's a real quick way to be sure that you got it right. All right, good luck today.